Greetings, friends. This is Dr. Richard Marks, and welcome to A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman, a reading of my unpublished novel, In Chapters. I hope you'll enjoy it. Chapter 19. Then, I Want to Be in America, Canada. On October 11th, 1971, I landed in Seattle, Washington. My Vietnam adventure was over. I had been officially discharged years ago, but I always found it interesting that my stint in Nam was almost exactly 4 years. I was to learn that was all just a coincidence. 'Twas politics that killed the beast. Sarge and Richard met me at the airport. "Are you ready to see your new home?" Sarge laughed. He had been back for 4 weeks, and he actually seemed less at ease than he was in Nam. Richard gave me a big hug. "Notch, welcome home," he said. "Wait till you see Sarge's compound." "Well, you're going to have to wait. It's about a 5-hour drive," Sarge laughed. As we drove, we spoke about the logistics of being based in Canada. "About 90% of our business is in the U.S., which means that the most essential part of our ability to operate successfully involves moving across the border with little or no attention. Here your French will come in handy." Sarge tossed me a Canadian passport. Leo, Montana. That doesn't sound French at all. Place of birth, Bouillon, Belgium, November 10th, 1950. "See, life is good. You're already 2.5 years younger. Your first assignment is to learn everything you can about Bouillon. I always detected a slight Belgian accent in your French. Besides, my sources tell me that Belgium and the Red Chinese will be establishing diplomatic relations soon, so you've got both sides covered." We all laughed. "I've got a U.S. passport coming for you as well. If needed, we can get anything we need in 72 hours. "And weapons-wise, I can get you anything you need in about 30 seconds, Rich added. "Sarge has an impressive armory." The drive was nice. It was so different from Nam in the Pacific Northwest. We spent most of the drive talking about politics. All of us agreed that the war in Vietnam was unwinnable for the U.S. given the current military strategy. "I would even postulate that the war was lost in 1968 after Tet. Maybe we all should have stayed here and made money," Sarge laughed. "Well, now we're back, thank the Lord," I added. "And past the ammunition," Rich added. "Some bad news. Coop says he's out. He's in Portland, but he said he's done with the game. When we get home, we can have a bourbon and soda as a salute to Coop." Dan, also known as Coop, was our explosive expert. Great in country, but in this country, it's probably not such a useful skill. He'll find a way to make it work. Still, he was a wild man, and he was always fun. I'll miss him. As we got close to the border, rather than going through Vancouver, we headed east toward a little town called Sumas. "It's the U.S. and Canada, but we wouldn't want to be mistaken for draft dodgers, right?" Sarge laughed. "We've got the situation in hand." As we approached the border, we were waved through, first by the Americans, then by the Canadians, just as we had been in Pendleton, almost 6 years before. "And Leon didn't even have to show his passport," Sarge joked. A couple of hours later, we turned onto a dirt road. After about 10 minutes, we came up to a large gate. Sarge handed me a padlock key. "You do the honor, son." I got out and unlocked the gate, and it swung it open. A paved road that led into the distance greeted me. Another 10 minutes, and we came upon the house. It wasn't what I would have expected. Sarge struck me as a classical or palatial guy, but the place almost looked like an office building. Yes, it was huge, 5 stories with a step design. It was incredible. Just not what I was expecting. I got settled in my room. Rooms, actually. "Get some sack time and hit this button when you wake up. We need to have a conversation," Sarge advised. Now, if I complain about the Continental Palace Hotel in Nam, every one of our troops that spent even one night in that hot, humid, mosquito-infested country would want to kick my ass, so I won't. But that evening, I slept like a rock. I woke up at 0409 and thought better about ringing Sarge, so I decided to explore. Walking down the 2 flights of stairs, I noticed that the light was on in the kitchen. "Good morning, son," said Sarge, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Did this guy ever sleep? I thought about it. In 5 years, I don't think I ever saw him sleeping. His eyes might be closed, but he would jump into a conversation without missing a beat. How about breakfast? Sorry, just bacon and eggs. No banh mi, Sarge joked. That's fine with me. 4 years didn't make me a Vietnamese food lover. Toast, stewed tomatoes, and coffee, or would you prefer tea? Sarge asked. Coffee's perfect. I'll make the toast. Toast and butter in the fridge? I asked as Sarge poached eggs in water. Yes, I'll have a piece too. Just one. We sat down to eat our pre-dawn breakfast. This far up north, the sun doesn't rise until around 7:45 at this time of year, so I'll make another pot of Joe. Joe? Shit, I've been notched so long, I don't even know who Joe is. I went to see that girl that Alan was going to marry, and she asked me my name. Rich had said that with Alan gone, I was captain now, so I told her my name was James Kirk. I panicked, and now some little Vietnamese kid is going to be named James Kirk. So I embellished a little bit for the narrative. That must have been a tough visit. You guys were close. It was. I'm glad to be out of there. Son, do you feel up to having a very serious conversation? I nodded. Yes, sir. That's good. You surpassed all my expectations in Nam. You carried out all your missions successfully, caused very little residual damage, and stayed alive. You showed operational planning, yet remained flexible and adaptive in the field. I'd like you to join my team. Up until Christmas Day, my life was a shit show. You were the first person to give me a chance, to respect me, to enrich my life. You didn't even tell me what being on your team actually means, but without even knowing, my inclination is to answer yes, sir. Well, you may not have specifically asked, but I'm guessing a smart gentleman like you already has a good idea of what we do. It's basically the same function as we performed in Nam. Put as naked as possible, we kill people for money. What kind of people? I ask because I would gladly kill for my country. Killing for money strikes me as a bit whorish. Sarge said. Let me answer your question by asking you a question. Who, in your estimation, is the most wonderful person to ever live? That's not a logical question. I guess if you ask most people, they would say Gandhi or Kennedy, John Kennedy, or even Jesus Christ. All three assassinated. Heck, Jesus might even be the first high-profile assassination. The Jews contracted the Romans to kill him. I'm being facetious, of course, but you get where I'm going. Would you personally have any moral qualms about killing any of them? I'm 24 years old, and I don't really have any idea how many people I've killed, notches aside. So no, I wouldn't have any moral qualms about killing anyone. Arjuna always made sense to me. But in Vietnam, the people we were taking out were mostly scumbags. Let me be honest. Contracting in civilian life is much more difficult than what we were doing in Southeast Asia. Cops, undercover cops, traveling, and in some instances bodyguards and targets who sometimes know it's coming complicate matters. But I know you enjoy logistical planning, so I know you're well suited to professional work. Make no mistake, this is purely a financial situation. We don't make any judgments. If they pay their money, we take care of their problems. And if you're up for it, we can start your training today. I'm honored that you would have so much faith in me, sir. Do you mind if I take some time to think about it? It's very different from what we were doing. Son, I would be concerned if you didn't take some time to think about it. Take all the time you need. Things got really complicated in my head. In Vietnam, it was anything goes, but here, rather than being like a police force, we would be being chased by the police. The things you get a medal for, if you were regular army, in war, would get you the electric chair in the so-called civilized world. Besides, I had 4 years of back retirement benefits piled up in Cayman National Bank that I hadn't even touched, and now those benefits could serve as my monthly income. So money was not a problem. On the other hand, I loved planning an operation, and, as I've said, I don't feel any moral restrictions. Sarge sounded like he really wants me, and I owe the man my life. Maybe my mind was poisoned a little by all those James Bond movies, the guns, the girls, the intrigue. A couple of days later I said, Sarge, I'm in. Son, I'm honored to have you joining our team. Notch, it's so cool you're joining us. Thomas will be back later today. 2 of Sarge's friends, older guys, Sam and Frank, are coming next week. I guess Sarge and the 2 of them were a team in the old days. Come on, I've got something to show you. In the barn, Rich lifted one end of what looked and smelled like a large trough. It raised like a car hood, revealing a set of stairs traveling into the darkness. Once Rich hit the lights, we descended into the armory. There's a tunnel from the main house behind a bookshelf in the library, too. Entrance and exit, tactically a wise move. We descended into the main armory. It was amazing. Every firearm and light armament, some pretty heavy ones as well, that you could think of. You could use anything you want down here, either on a contract or just for target practice. We're on enough acreage that no one is going to hear you. But for smaller caliber, we have 3 stalls down here. Where do I start, I wondered. But the MP5 SD, a 9mm machine gun with a silencer, caught my eye. Oh, we could have used this on the General Fong assignment. In the several months since our raid on Fong's base, the U.S. government had admitted that Fong was an NVA general who was running heroin and prostitutes in league with corrupt elements of the SVA and the U.S. Army. It was believed that during his drug operations, several U.S. Special Investigators Unit MPs had gotten wise, and he had them killed. It was determined that we would terminate his command. Efforts to do so were more difficult because of his fortified location in North Vietnam and the substantial number of troops under his command. A suppressed machine gun would have been helpful when moving in. We lost Alan and Miles in that operation, and I took 2 hits. But the operation was a success. Almost 6 tons of drugs were incinerated, and over 30 Thai girls, mostly underage, were freed, probably to go work in Brussels and Saigon. Sometimes you just can't win. You won't ever not have the right ordnance again, obviously, Rich said, spreading his arms and laughing. Just wait. Sarge is taking you to Vancouver to load your go-bag tomorrow. The next day, Sarge and I took the 2-hour-plus drive to Vancouver. Before the trip, Sarge handed me a black leather bag. This is your go-bag. It's the one thing you will always have close, and the one thing you will take with you in any emergency. The carry straps each have 2 Krugerrands sewn into them. Our first stop was at a place called Thomas Cook. An order for Dr. Saltzman, Sarge said as he handed them his British Columbia driver's license and his Canadian passport. Both said, Dr. Emil Saltzman. Yes, sir. Please, gentlemen, wait for me in this secure office. I shall be with you momentarily. Tina, please see if the gentlemen need anything. Gentlemen, can I get you coffee, tea, cigarettes, cigars? No, thank you, Tina, but thank you for your hospitality. Leon, would you like anything from the very lovely Tina? Shit, Sarge was hitting on this young woman. She was probably younger than me. Thank you, miss, but nothing for me, I said. Please, if you need anything, she said, looking directly at Dr. Saltzman. Holy shit, the old guy still had it. He gave me a little shit-eating grin as we both watched Tina and her miniskirt leave the office. The suit came in with a large safe deposit-looking box. I'll leave you gentlemen in private. Just press the buzzer when you've completed your business, He unlocked the box and left the room. These are for your go-bag, Sarge said while pulling books of traveler's checks out of the box. 10,000 Swiss francs, 10,000 Canadian dollars, and 10,000 in U.S. dollars. Don't sign anything until you need to use them, and be sure you have matching ID and passport. I have matching U.S., Canadian, and Belgian documents to keep in the go-bag. Rich has the weaponry and explosives for you when we get home. Thanks, but how can I repay you? I wondered. It's part of your employment package. Besides, you'll be earning your keep very soon. As we were leaving, Tina said, Excuse me, Doctor, what's your specialty? I'm an ophthalmologist, Sarge lied. I've been having a slight blurriness in my right eye. Let's have a quick look, may I? Please do, Tina replied a little too quickly. Sarge took the girl's head between his hands and brought his face very close to hers and stared into her eyes. Miss, you have beautiful eyes. I don't see any problems, but of course this isn't a very thorough examination. Tina handed him the office's business card. I've written my number on the back. Perhaps we can arrange a more thorough examination. Certainly. Expect to hear from me next week, Sarge said. If you're paying attention, you'll notice that I haven't described any of my brothers physically. That's because there's no reason to give anyone a description that could be used against us. But at this point, since it no longer matters, let me describe Sarge. Remember the first time I met him in the Chinese restaurant? He wrapped a metal knife around my wrist with one hand. Now imagine the look of someone that could do that, and you'd be way off. Sure, he looked powerful, but at 6'2", he amazingly also looked elegant in an odd way. He had enormous charisma, enough charisma to get the phone number of a knockout who was less than half his age. I guess at this point I should give you a brief description of myself. I imagine that if we could go back and ask Tina, she would describe us as the dashing James Bondish gentleman and his son. The best thing I can say about my looks is that I'm in good shape, but in terms of my face, I'm plain. Not handsome enough nor ugly enough to be memorable. Fortunately, my face had mostly healed from the bullet wound. It wasn't that noticeable. On the drive back, I said to Sarge, "Well, Doctor, you seem to have made a new friend." "Yes, a lovely young lady, too. That's one of the things I detested about Vietnam, those bandy legs and no asses." Sarge laughed. "Tina possessed both, thank goodness. Women who look like that are out of my league." I was doing the poor me routine. "Nonsense, you don't have to be a matinee idol to meet women. Shit, look at me. Besides, your looks are very suited to this line of work. Standing out isn't a plus. Besides, didn't you wear your dick out the first month or two in Nam? You're confusing me with Coop. I think he slept more at the Jack Daniels bar than he did at the Continental." "Yeah, they estimate that there are 500,000 prostitutes in Nam, and I'm betting Coop banged them all," Sarge joked. "You always looked the other way when his hooch maid would visit," I reminded Sarge. "Of course I did. She cleaned my quarters a time or two." To be perfectly honest, my attitude toward women has been irreparably damaged since I killed that Lan Bihang in Saigon. I guess I have trust issues. Never sure of their motivation, I shared. "Oh, son, that's understandable to some extent. She tried to kill you after all. But everyone has motivations for their actions, just not typically homicidal motivations." "I guess I'm just looking for a beautiful woman who doesn't want to kill me," I joked. "It does clarify the phrase, killer pussy," Sarge joked. We both laughed. In fact, when I look at the 8 years or so I spent with Sarge, even with our grim line of work, my greatest memory was how much we laughed. Strange when you think of it. When we got home, Thomas was there, so the three of us spent the night reminiscing about events that in some cases only happened a couple months before. Sarge would wander in now and again and join in the conversation, but he seemed preoccupied. As the night wore on, we started getting a bit maudlin, talking about Miles and Alan, who were lost in Vietnam, and Coop, who had decided not to join us. "Let's get some shut-eye, brothers," I said. At that, both Rich and Thomas stood up in their best imitation of attention. "Yes, sir," they said in unison. "What the fuck?" "Notch, with Alan gone, it's obvious that you're in charge now. Sir, Notch is our leader now, we figure, right?" "Men," Sarge said, "we're a team, all for one, but yes, if Notch tells you to do something, imagine it's directly from me." The next couple months were spent learning forensics, scheduling mission review, and police procedures. We had the time of our life when we learned on Thanksgiving Day what Coop had been up to the day before. Just awesome. He was still crazy and $200,000 richer. Two of Sarge's old friends, Sam and Frank, no last names, came to spend a few weeks at the compound. Sam was obviously from somewhere in South America. I later learned Cuba. And Frank had the look of someone who had seen an awful lot and not a lot of good things. For some reason that kept us occupied like schoolboys, they referred to Sarge as CC. We swore we would get to the bottom of that. In early 1972, we started taking contracts. I don't want to talk about too many specifics because I don't want to say anything to incriminate Rich, but suffice it to say, we got paid to kill people. No reason to glamorize it. It's not a fucking movie. It's not glamorous work. As a private contractor, there are two overriding reasons we rarely get caught. Mr. Smith dies in a mysterious fashion, and law enforcement looks at the people around him. Wife, business partners, friends, whatever. As hitmen, we are never those guys. We go to the location, do our job with, usually, no emotional involvement. Then we're on the next train home. I remember once hitting a guy who was armed. My first shot didn't kill him because I was falling away as I shot, since he was shooting at me, and I had no desire for bullet wound number 6. When I was about to administer the coup de grace, he said, "Why are you doing this to me?" I had to give him the honest answer. I have no idea. Someone wanted him dead, but I don't know who or why, and I don't care. Callous? Well... There's a second reason that a good contractor is rarely apprehended, and that's because the best advice you can give a detective pretty much moves a contractor from the possible scenarios. Follow the money. Cops, forget this advice at your own risk. There are a lot of, I guess what you would call in football, set plays. The knock on the door, the late appointment, the parking garage, the new neighbor, not to mention the more well-known long-distance shot, not preferred by real professionals unless the target is surrounded by security. My personal preference is the elevator. If you've watched too many movies, you probably think that means you wait and stalk your target until you can catch them alone in an elevator. Bullshit. Here's the problem. If you use that scenario, you never know what's on the other side of those elevator doors when it's high time to tail it out of there. It could be Elliot Ness himself. Additionally, you would be the only person stepping out of an elevator that contains a dead body. No question who did this job, right? The real way to do it is in an elevator that's crowded as hell. Most people have never heard an actual gunshot, much less been in close range of a firearm being discharged. 4 quick rounds being discharged, 4 eardrum-splitting rounds will render all bystanders in the elevator temporarily deaf and very disoriented. Hell, at least half of them will piss themselves, and, in addition to the target, there will almost always even be a shitter. I wear a jacket with a piece of asbestos about 4x6 glued inside, in the back behind my left armpit. Muzzle blasts can ignite material. I back up to my target, and just as the door is about to open, 4 quick, out my back. Confusion, fear, flight, me too. I'm out of there in what appears to be a natural reaction. Any possible witnesses waiting for the doors to open will be overwhelmed by everyone. Well, except for one passenger exiting the scene. It ain't like in the movies, but it gets the job done. Our operation was simple. Sarge was the contact. He spoke to the employer and compiled info on the target. The 4 of us would then discuss the hit and decide who would take it. Rich was very important to the operation, so he took the fewest. I took the most. All the money was wired to an offshore account, and Sarge then transferred it to our individual accounts. I never paid for anything all the time I lived in the Cube. That was our name for Sarge's home. In late March, Sarge called me into the library. Son, we've been offered a contract that I don't want to take, but we've been offered a large amount of money to do a risk assessment for the interested employer. Sure, Sarge, you want me to go get the guys? Let's keep this between you and I, shall we? There's no way you could know this, but we have strayed into politics a bit more than I would like. It's a dirty business. It seems like many of these weasels find it easier to get rid of their opponents rather than using the ballot box. I'll speak plainly. We were offered $250,000 to assassinate President Richard Nixon next month when he's in Ottawa. I turned down the job, but they countered with an offer of $50,000 to assess the holes in Secret Service coverage, especially his overseas team. Obviously, this information will be used for nefarious purposes, but that can't be our concern. Does a trip to the capital interest you? No wet work? I confirmed. Sarge shook his head. No, just a tactical report. Yes, sir. On April 12th, I flew from Vancouver to Ottawa. It was pleasurable to travel with no operation to carry out, rather just to observe and report. The following day, I was at Ottawa's Government House when Nixon arrived for talks, and later as he left. I didn't think there was ample opportunity for an assassination attempt. The Secret Service did an excellent job of protecting Nixon. There was one thing, or should I say one person, that did stand out. A balding man wearing a business suit and sunglasses had a glassy, nut-job look on his face. His suit also gave away that he was carrying what I assume was a gun, probably a .38, in his right suit pocket. Even so, as I reported to Sarge, I thought Nixon was very well protected from all but the most talented professionals. The following month, the nut job I had spotted turned his attention elsewhere, in Laurel, Maryland, of all places. And yes, it was a Charter Arms undercover .38 caliber revolver. In June, Sarge and I went on an assignment together. It had been a long time since he babysat me, and we had a fantastic time. I took out a bank manager in Atlanta, and Sarge visited some old friends. We visited Dr. Martin Luther King's birthplace, which seemed to put Sarge in a melancholy mood which was very different for him. That night at our hotel he said, "Son, I've always wanted to play a round of golf at Augusta National. Would you mind if we made a little detour?" Now, I have zero interest in golf, but I didn't mind spending a couple more days on the trip. "I'm more than happy to tag along while you hit something on your bucket list," I joked. "There's been something else on my bucket list, and it may also be on yours. A city councilman in Augusta is a man by the name of Edward Gore. While as a general rule, I think the world would be a better place if we eliminated all city councilmen, but this one is special. Try as I might, I couldn't place this Gore fellow, and Sarge seemed bemused by the quizzitive look on my face. Maybe I should say, former General Edward Gore. Yes, the honey-trapped general. The same, shall we? Yes, may I? Of course, but not before I get the boot in, Sarge replied. The next day we started our 170-mile trip to Augusta, with a brief detour to Athens. Sarge wanted to see one of the 2 remaining double-barrel cannons from the Civil War, and I got to hear all about their history. Rich would have been so sad to miss this lecture. Once we checked into the hotel, Sarge went off to his 1:30 tea time, and I walked around the city. I had a great time crossing from Augusta, Georgia, over the Savannah River into Augusta, South Carolina. We met back at the hotel and went out for dinner. After dark, we went to meet Mr. Gore. We parked 3 blocks away from his house, and as we walked to the house, the bouquet of the blooming Carolina caprifoliaceae filled the night. Sarge knocked on the door, and as it opened, Sarge slammed his palm into Gore's nose. Aside from the blood, Gore stood up to fight while I reconned the house. "We're alone." "Who the fuck are you?" Gore asked. Sarge answered him with a brutal knee to the groin, and Gore was down, never to rise up again. Sarge answered with what seemed like a well-rehearsed response. "Who am I?" "I'm the Battle of Hakman. I'm 127 dead Marines from Operation Swift. I'm 2 wiped-out platoons from Operation Paul Revere, and I'm 100 Americans from Chu Ni Hai. And this young man is also someone." Sarge gave me the signal. "I'm Lan Bi Hong. She was the first woman I ever killed, and now you're going to pay for that." "Hey, wait, guys!" My 9mm blew off his balls. I waited a couple seconds until the realization and pain hit him, then one right in the face. "Come on, Lan Bi Hong, let's get out of here." I tried to do a Vietnamese call girl giggle, and Sarge let out a bellowing laugh. Thank you for listening to A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman, copyright 2025, as read by me, the author, Dr. Richard Marks. A new chapter will be posted each week. A Murder Most Foul is produced and recorded at Batavia Studios in Jakarta. This podcast and A Murder Most Foul, The Life of a Hitman are solely works of fiction, and any similarities to persons living or dead are merely coincidental. The music used in this podcast is the second movement of Franz Schubert's Piano Trio in E-flat, Opus 100. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to email me at drrichardmarks@gmail.com. That's drrichardmarcs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe to the podcast and tell a friend. Thank you. And until next week, be more than you seem.